Yo, what's up everybody? Let's go. I pretty much just ran home from work because this balance patch is amazing. It's not amazing because of the changes. The changes hardly matter. Some cool ones, okay? We're gonna get to some of these spicy changes when we talk about these 4 cards. But they made some big game-breaking news about how balance changes are going to happen for the foreseeable future, and it's really, really exciting. So here we go, okay? We got guys, the awesome mod in the official Discord. So for those unaware, OTA stands for over the air. So these are changes that they can make kind of on the fly, which is why this one just like spawned out of nowhere. It just popped up and it's already live in the game. They're going to be small changes. They're going to be like energy or power, just not reworks essentially. But these little changes that they can do frequently, so frequently that it can be every single week, which is going to be every Thursday, which is so cool. So let's skip some of these changes. We're going to get to them in just a second, but here's the balance feature of Marvel Snap. So there's going to be a bigger patch coming on 4.18, and those bigger patches are always going to be deployed on Tuesdays. But these Thursday patches every week are going to be small little tweaks, which I'm super excited about. They talk about like why Thursdays? Why not, dude? I think that's a great day because you already got so much going on in the early week with like the featured location, new cards coming out, whatnot. And then what kind of changes are we going to be making? So it's going to be small stuff. All the VFX, card functionality, that's all going to be in the bigger patch, which is going to be once a month, which is still pretty good. And then we get these small tweaks. They also talk about buffs. They will be buffing cards, which is amazing. We haven't seen buffs in so long. We have a couple to talk about here soon. But then how many? 2 to 4 cards a week. That's pretty exciting. That's a lot more than I imagined. Like, I don't even know what happens when you have a pretty healthy meta. Like, do you continue to keep up these changes? Maybe that's like not so great, but honestly, I'm of the opinion that change cards all you want, shakes things up, makes things interesting. And if it wasn't great, well, guess what? We can just change it right back next week. 1 week of just like kind of messing up a card and just say, sorry, let's change it back. I think that's totally fine, okay? We just have to see their approach. That's what depends here. They have to have an active approach that hits the right meaningful cards, okay? So they have a list of buffs and a very small list of nerfs that we're making to existing content. We're prioritizing them based on how we expect the individual changes to affect the metagame or even combine with new cards and locations, but we'll shift them around based on the live metagame. I think that's exciting. A lot of people have been looking for some buffs. So why not make all those changes now? Well, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. I mean, like, why just like dish out a whole whack of buffs? Then there's just going to be better cards and they're going to end up at the top of the meta. There's going to be worse cards and then you got to buff those later on. I like the slow drip a little bit more, okay? And how long are they going to do this? It's a trial period for May. They're going to see how it goes and they're going to keep going if it goes well. And honestly, I don't see how it couldn't go well. There's always going to be backlash. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of salty people about these changes that happened today and frequent balance changes, but I don't get it, dude. I think it's all good and fun. So let's get to the changes that they made today. Starting with Sunspot. Okay, so this is the most played 1-drop in the game. That's what they were saying. And that's why they wanted to change it slightly to give other 1-drops a little bit of breathing room. And I think that's actually, at least the approach they took here was really good. I like Sunspot. I don't even know if it necessarily needed a nerf. It gets destroyed by Killmonger. It sometimes gets destroyed by Shang-Chi if it gets to crazy power totals. And then sometimes it's underwhelming and it doesn't get to the power totals that you wanted to, or it can be awkward because you don't want to use energy because you want to buff your Sunspot and vice versa. So what they did is they took 1 point of power away. Is that going to kill Sunspot? Absolutely not. It is still going to be a perfectly fine 1-drop that you can put in a lot of decks. But do you want to put it on every single deck? Maybe not. Maybe we start thinking about cutting this card every now and then for something else that just has base power and a decent effect. So I actually really like this change. I don't think it's going to make a huge difference to Sunspot's viability, which is actually just fantastic. Okay, now we have a couple cards that I do not own, which I'm excited because now I get to try them in their better state. So we have the Sentry, which isn't really being called a buff or a nerf because it kind of goes both ways, but in my opinion, it's a buff, straight up. So he's a 410. A 410 compared to the 4.8. That was actually his data mined version. For some reason, they backpedaled on that. Okay, so we have a 410 now. You still can't play it on the right location, but on reveal, add a -10 power void to the right location. So now the void is -10. Okay, so yeah, that could hurt, obviously. Like if some means you can't get rid of that void, then you just gave yourself -10 power and that sucks. But 410 is no joke with no condition. I'm talking like there's Dazzler, there's a Tumba, there's a bunch that need support or any other additional help to get to 410, and Sentry just does it on his own. Now, of course, the void is going to suck, but there's ways we can get around that, right? We can talk about Cosmo, right? And put Sentry in the Cosmo lane. You could destroy the void. You could Viper the void, right? What if the right location is full? Then the void can't even spawn. So I think this is actually a huge swing for the Sentry. It definitely gives it an opportunity to be seen in a few decks. Now, it just doesn't have some of that same synergistic oomph that you kind of need in the cards when you're building your deck, right? But I'm excited to try this card out when I get it. I'm actually excited to pick it up. I'm not going to be disappointed when I see Sentry pop up, at least hopefully in a chest someday, maybe, please. And then we have Shadow King, another one that's been changed that I don't own, which I'd be excited to see in a chest. Oh my gosh. So he went from a 4-3 to a 3-3. Okay, Shadow King, I see you. So basically what they said in the comments, which was kind of funny, is that Shadow King was designed to stop or be a tech option against those Shuri Red Skull decks. But it turns out he wasn't doing his job. He was kind of slacking, and now they had to change him, give him a little bit of buff to see if he can get back out there and get to work. But I don't know if it's actually going to work out for Shadow King. But it's pretty, you know, an energy reduction is a pretty sizable change. And now he's working with Silver Surfer. So before he was working with Zabu. Now he's not working with that guy, but he's working with Silver Surfer and can get those buffs. And maybe that becomes a deck. You start teching in your Shadow King to counter, I don't know, maybe those Sunspots or those Red Skulls or whatever's doubling. And maybe we see that. You know, there's other things that this works well against. I've seen some people online on Twitter like showing some awesome tweets of Shadow King plays. So maybe he becomes a little bit more relevant because the barrier to entry to teching it into your deck is much less. It doesn't feel so bad playing a 3-drop and being able to play cards on 4 compared to, you know, using this as your 4-drop and then being kind of, you know, left for dry in the later turn. So I think this is going to help him a lot. I just don't know. I haven't played with the card myself, as you can tell, to see if it's going to be viable or not. I still don't know if either of these cards, this one or Sentry, are worth spending tokens on. So just because they got changed, I wouldn't just run to the shop and buy them, okay? I would probably wait, see some data, like see what people are saying until you make that decision. And lastly is Red Skull. So I'm not going to talk about this one in particular too much because it got 1 power reduction, which does not matter at all. You went from 26 power combo with your Shuri to 24. That's still an insane amount of power. But you know, we're getting to the point where it might not be enough, right? Regardless, I think it's still a very good combination. We're still going to see it for the next week or two until that patch deploys because they talked about Shuri. So basically they said this change is just an interim change, which we might even revert, which is kind of more exciting for me. But they are waiting until that Shuri change goes live. And clearly, because it wasn't an over-the-air change for Shuri, that means it's not just a power or an energy change. It's going to be an ability. It's going to be a rework, which I think a lot of people are excited for, and a much needed change in my opinion. So this is just temporary. And they even said they could revert it, which I would love to see. I don't think Red Skull deserves this treatment, this absolute bashing that he's gotten because of Shuri sins. Like, come on. Can we bring him back to giving +2 power? I kind of liked it when he had that negative ability, but a really crazy high power total. So I could see him going to a 514 with the +2 power, you know? It's still not that great. Then you're like net 6 if your opponent has 4 cards over there, unless you find means to buff him up or get rid of that ability. So I would like to see that change for Red Skull, but more excited about the talks of Shuri changing, and we'll definitely cover that at a later time. Anyways, let me know what you think about these changes in the comments below. I'm pretty excited about this new means of balance and seeing it every week. It's going to really keep the game fresh. So anyways, thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time.